Hello out there, you wonderful people. This is Andre the Game Idea Guy. Thank you once again for giving me your time and your ear listening to another Pitch for Switch discussion. And yes, I do know it's been a while, but guess what? Life happens, so things had to be done. It took me away from recording a lot of stuff, so I'm trying to catch myself up by recording a bunch of things all at once. Which you guys won't see all of it happening, but it will happen. That all set aside, this one's pretty obvious because you saw the thumbnail and the title already. So what I'm going to be talking about is adding the Wii to Nintendo Switch Online. Again, this should be pretty self-explanatory. I mean, Nintendo's already shown the process that they'll go through to do some of this stuff. Like, hey, we're going to remake those controllers that were for this particular console so that you still have the feel of that console when you play the games. Now, with the Switch, that may be a little bit different in how they do that because everything would have to be wireless. I mean, it's not like most of what the Wii did wasn't wireless as is. But if they're going to re-release the Wii Remote and Nunchuck as well as the Sensor Bar, because they'd have to re-release it as a complete set, or one set with the Sensor Bar and one set without, this is how I think they should do it. Make the Sensor Bar battery operated, whether it's a rechargeable battery or not doesn't make much of a difference, but re-release it with a battery operated Sensor Bar, so that way it doesn't have to be plugged directly into the unit, and they can go ahead and have it connect through Bluetooth the same way that the controller does. And guess what that'll also bring with that? A wireless nunchuck and a wireless Wii Remote, which the Wii Remote was already wireless, but a wireless nunchuck that connects to your Wii Remote. Now, with the nunchuck, they don't necessarily have to make the nunchuck itself Bluetooth. They could do the, I think the Wi-Fi radio thing that Microsoft was doing with the Xbox controllers. They can do that and have the adapter piece connect to the bottom of the Wii Remote, so that way you could still use your old nunchuck if you want to. But just in case you don't have any old nunchucks lying around, you can connect that and then connect your controller to that Wii Remote, and it would be paired with that Wii Remote through that adapter. Again, this will also help make sure that everybody's signals for their controllers are correct. This way there's no confusion between them. Now, knowing Nintendo probably just going to ignore all of that and just release the nunchuck with a wired cord. Now, if they're going to do that, please at least release it with a cord that is longer than 3 feet. That way it just allows for greater freedom of movement of the person's arms, because that was always my big problem with the Wii Remote and Nunchuck as they were, because you didn't really have much length to work with the controller. Obviously that also means that they would re-release the Classic Controller Pro. Maybe the Classic Controller Pro and the original Classic Controller, just because there may be preference of feel by people. But either way, have it available so it can be used with the Wii Remote, because somebody's going to want to get the complete set, obviously. Or they could just re-release that itself as a wireless controller. They could actually do that. They could re-release that as a wireless controller for the Switch itself. That way you don't even have to have the Wii Remote connected in order to use it. But again, if they're remaking the Wii Remote, at least have the Wii Remote be usable with the Classic Controller. And then, hey, even at that point, that means you can connect that new Wii Remote to your Switch and use your old Classic Controller or Classic Controller Pro, and have those controller options be usable for your Switch without hacking or modding. Because obviously some people did find ways to hack or use third-party adapters in order to be able to use these controllers with the console, or as it is currently. But then that would also mean that they'd have to update the firmware for the Switch to allow for the Wii Remote to be able to be used outside of those particular games, which I'm not sure how that would work because of the lack of buttons that the Switch Joy-Cons have. Well, not the Joy-Cons, but the lack of buttons the Wii Remote has versus the Joy-Cons. Now, some games would be perfectly fine because they don't use all of the buttons, but then there's others where it'll be like, I'm not sure how this will work well with these, so maybe some games won't have them as an option. But still, for the majority that could, allow it. And utilize the HD Rumble technology for the Wii Remote. And keep the speaker on the Wii Remote, so that way the games that you would be playing that were Wii games, or even games that were updated and put on the Switch that may have been older games, will make use of that speaker and the sounds that it used to create. Because that was one of the benefits of having the Wii Remote, was that speaker and the added sound and immersion that it could give you as a player. So that would be something to consider and keep in mind. Now, is there anything else I'm missing? Obviously, you want games, so they're going to have to release a slew of Wii games to this service, which would likely be all of the Marios that they have. If Metroid Prime Trilogy is not getting remade or remastered for the Switch, then this would be the place to re-release it. Punch-Out, obviously, because that's a game that needs to see the light of day more. The Wii series games, Wii Play, Wii Sports, Wii Sports Resort, and stuff like that. All of that needs to be re-released on this service. Thinking, like, there's a bunch of stuff that I can run through, but a lot of the better third-party games that were on the Wii could be released here. There's a lot to really go over, but Nintendo did have a slew of stuff themselves. Like, they could re-release Sin and Punishment 2 for it. I think they did re-release the original Sin and Punishment on the Nintendo Switch Online, so someone can correct me if I'm wrong. I do think that they did put that on there. But again, if I'm wrong, somebody could correct me. And if they didn't, then they could go ahead and drop that along with this and drop Sin and Punishment 2 at the same time, to get people encouraged to play them. But I could go all day about games. And obviously, the last story in Pandora's Tower, they need to be there. No questions asked. They need to be there. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. But that all scurried over and talked about and glossed over and everything. I think that if they went with a more wireless approach, like I think would be beneficial to them. Obviously, they'd have to do some tweaking to make everything work properly, which, this is Nintendo, we know they can do it. It just takes time. But that's all out the way, so thank you guys very much for listening, and keep your eyes and ears out for more stuff from me. And until the next time, enjoy your games. Peace out.